Hello, Ghoul fiends, and welcome back to the Horror Ghouls podcast. I'm T, that's Megan, and we're your counselors on this terrifying trip to Camp Crystal Lake, where we'll dissect every scream, scare, and sinister twist from the 1980s original Friday the 13th, directed by Sean Cunningham. And how fitting is it that we're reviewing this iconic film on, of course, Friday the 13th, right? That's so great.
Beautiful. Happy Friday the 13th to all those who
Yes,
observe.
absolutely. So, this classic slasher didn't just introduce us to the infamous Jason Voorhees, which, we see him right
Oh,
here.
got the
It,
merch to back it
yes,
up. Yeah.
it laid the groundwork for an entire horror franchise. From mysterious murders to shocking final reveals, we'll serve up a full synopsis and our chilling thoughts on the film that started it all. If you're feeling brave while watching this on YouTube, be sure to like the video and hit the subscribe button. And don't forget, we are also available for your auditory pleasure on your go-to streaming platform. We typically release new episodes once a month, right?
Typically.
Typically.
Sometimes we have some surprises,
Yeah,
like today. But
right?
otherwise, once a month, unless it's more. And that's all we're gonna say about that.
Exactly, exactly. So, just to ask, have you ever been to a summer camp?
I don't know why I thought you were gonna say cemetery, and I was like, I don't know why we're talking about that, but I'm excited.
Right?
Um, I have been, but not like a sleepaway one. It was just like a day camp, but that I didn't like because they made us go to the beach where there's horseshoe crabs. Totally not relevant to Camp Crystal Lake, but actually, no.
It
I
might
was gonna
be, who
say maybe they
knows?
were horseshoe crabs there. Those are terrifying. But yeah, never a sleepaway one. Did you go to any kind of camp like that?
I did. It was a
You
religious
did?
camp. That was a Catholic camp.
Oh my gosh, what happens at a Catholic summer camp?
The same things that happen at any summer camp. It was still creepy. We were in cabins. There were bugs. Somebody put fake bugs all in my bed and scared me. And then one of the counselors had to let me sip on her Diet Coke, which it freaked me out because she had drank off it. And I am a Virgo. It is my season. And I don't like to drink
That's
off people.
yeah, no, and also with your just hatred of bugs. Oh my God. I can't imagine
Yes.
like a worse thing
Yeah. And I
for
was
you.
way worse as a kid. I think
Oh
I
my
went there when I
God.
was like 11 or 12. So yeah, it was
How long
horrible.
did you go for?
You go for a couple weeks. I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks, something like that.
What?
Yeah,
That
might
sounds
have been a little
cool, but
longer.
like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just old now that I'm like, I don't want to, I'm not doing that. I don't
Yeah, Camp
know.
Newman. For anyone watching, which I know there's at least one person who knows about Camp Newman there watches
Camp
this. So
Newman.
yeah, because we both went to Camp Newman. So Camp Newman.
Oh, okay. All right. I like that. Not
Yes,
the
and it
bug
was
part, but the rest of it.
yeah,
Interesting.
it was that person's cousin who put the bugs in my bed, just so y'all know, okay?
We are telling on people today. This is a great
hmm
start. I love it. I love
Right?
it. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean camp is interesting, but I don't think any of us want to go to a camp like this at all.
Well, I want to start by saying I know we're going to cover this at some point. It's in New Jersey, so just it's an automatic no.
Yeah.
Just no.
Voorhees, New Jersey.
No thanks. I mean,
Yeah.
just not like when I think of a summer camp in New Jersey, I'm thinking of like Tony Soprano and like a big sandwich,
Oh my gosh.
multi-layered meats, which I mean, I'm interested in the sandwich, but nothing else about it. So,
Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you.
no.
Well, let us rewind to 1958. So this was the year where NASA was created.
Oh,
Bobby Fischer won the U.S. Chess Championship. A new house cost around $12,000, which is crazy,
what? Wow.
right?
Okay.
And guess what? The minimum wage was $1 an hour. Okay.
I'm gonna get lines in my forehead. I have to relax my face because I'm getting very upset. Okay.
That's 1958, okay?
Wow.
And this was also the year that Camp Crystal Lake opened its doors to their new campers that year. And
Wow.
they invited the youngsters in for a summer of fun and camaraderie. But not all was what it seemed. Two counselors, Claudette and Barry, seeking a little escapade away from the quintessential fireside sing-along, find themselves meeting a grisly end at the hand of an unknown killer. And see, this unfortunate event causes the camp to be shut down, with its reputation forever tainted, earning the ominous nickname Camp Blood. Okay.
That'll do it. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm.
And so we do have a title scene and a whole credit sequence here, which I love the music. I'm going to say this now. Throughout this entire movie, the score is phenomenal. I love it so very much.
Yeah.
I miss movies that have these type of like orchestral scores. I
Yeah.
just I love it, and it's like authentic. It's not like, yeah, we're putting it on a beat machine. Nothing wrong with that either, but we're not like faking it AI generated orchestra music.
Yeah.
So
No,
yeah, I
you can
just
tell a lot went into it. And one of the things I'll say really quick, just about the title shot, when we get the title Friday the 13th, it is so incredibly 80s. And it just made me smile so big because it kind of comes almost like I want to say like almost like a PowerPoint animation. Like it just
yes,
comes out of the corner at us and I
breaks
don't
the
know.
screen.
Yeah, yeah. To that beautiful uh
Yes,
music. But yes, I did appreciate the nostalgia of it all.
definitely. I
Yeah.
definitely did. So after that, we will fast forward to 1980 and we meet Annie, a hiker looking for Camp Crystal Lake. She stops by a local diner where her inquiry about the camp causes an immediate hush to come over the entire place. The locals inform her that Camp Blood is about 20 miles away, and Enos, I think that's how you say his name,
Yeah, I wasn't
uh,
sure either. I was like, Enos, whatever it is, it's
might
fine.
be Enos. I don't know. Enos, as a truck driver, and he offers to give her a ride halfway there. And so on their way to the truck, they're stopped by Crazy Ralph, who's the town loony, and he warns Annie that she'll never come back because the camp is cursed. Now, Enos does brush Ralph off, and they get in the truck, and in the background, you can see Crazy Ralph riding a bike, but once they're on the road, Enos also warns Annie, recounting the two counselors that died in 1958 that we talked about previously, a boy that mysteriously drowned in 1957, a string of fires, and an issue they had with contaminated water that kept the camp closed. So he insists that the camp is jinxed. And despite his ominous warnings, Annie thanks Enos for his ride, gets dropped off halfway, and has to walk the rest of the way. So next we meet Ned, Marcy, and Jack, who are driving to Camp Crystal Lake. And upon arrival, they're immediately greeted by Steve Christie, who is the son of the camp's original owners. So he immediately sets them to work. Like they don't even get out the car.
No,
He's like, hey guys, come over here, help me with this tree trunk right now, okay?
gets to work. Also, something I noted that was weird. So again, we said this camp is in New Jersey, right?
Mhm.
But the way that they're setting up these shots and the way that like they're driving in the truck and they're listening to wild banjo music as if this was set in like the deep set, like the devil went down to Georgia, like
Yeah,
that I was like, we're in New Jersey, right? Like, why are we having this
yeah,
such a country vibe? And it's not really important to anything, but there are a few times where people in different locations are blasting country music. And I'm like, it doesn't super fit. I'm like, have you guys been to New Jersey before? Like, no, it's
yeah.
all Frank Sinatra and like other similar shit like that.
I mean, what's weird is if I didn't know that it was based off of New Jersey or anything like that, I wouldn't think that because
No,
this movie does not give me
it
New
really
Jersey,
doesn't.
even though I will say neither one of us was alive in 1980. Okay. So neither one of us know what New Jersey was like in 1980. Maybe it was. Maybe they're in South Jersey. I don't know.
I
Uh,
mean,
because they're not
like,
in North Jersey. We know that.
no, they're certainly not. They got to be in some like bushy county because it was like the town they show is a small town, like
Yes.
the town that Alice, no,
Hmm.
Annie. We got
Annie.
we got a few A names in this movie. My apologies.
Alice is from Cali.
That's right. But it is as it does give that small town kind of like vibe, which I get, but I'm still kind of like this isn't really giving Jersey. It is more passable to me as like upstate New York almost. That's kind of more of like the thing. But
It's giving me West Virginia. Okay.
That's where Mothman's from.
He's not, he's from Maryland. He's, oh no,
No, that's
when you
Goat
said
Man.
Malcolm, I'm
That's
sorry.
the Goat Man. And that, everyone, is a throwback to our cryptid discussion from the last episode. Mothman is from West Virginia.
Oh, okay.
And he also lives part-time in my home. And Goatman is from Maryland and also somewhere
Yes.
else, like that he's been kidnapped by some Long Islander. But that's a
Long Island.
story for another time.
Yes. On
I
another
digress.
channel.
On another channel. Yes,
Oh,
absolutely. Oh
well.
my gosh.
So after Steve puts the kids to work, we do meet Alice as well, and she's another counselor. And it does appear that Steve and Alice are romantically involved because it seemed like she was drawing him while he was asleep, probably after they did something they weren't supposed to be doing. And Alice does express a desire to leave and go back to California, but Steve does talk her into staying until Friday, which the day that this all is taking place on is also a Friday. So he's asking her to give
The
a
following
week.
week, right?
Right. So things start to get a little odd because as Alice is talking to another counselor named Bill, so right now, just so you know, we have Ned, Marcy, Jack, Alice, Bill, and the owner, Steve. So
We got a
we
bunch
got a
of
bunch of
people.
people.
Yep.
So, Alice starts talking to Bill, and we get a brief glimpse of someone that seems like they're watching from a distance. So that's a little weird. But later on, it doesn't seem like it's too much later.
Mhm.
Steve gives the group instructions to prepare the camp for its grand reopening before heading out. Now, I swear he states he's going to try to be back before noon because he thinks it's going to rain. I think that is what he said.
Hmm.
But we're later on, I'm gonna come back to this
Okay.
because I swear that's what he said.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Um but yeah, so
Yeah.
after he leaves, Ned points out that Steve never mentioned the camp's nickname of being Camp Blood, but they all don't take this seriously. They dismiss it and they make light of it and they joke about there being snakes at the camp. Like, oh, you're gonna tell me that there's snakes next.
Well,
So
like you're outside, so maybe that's not
could
like
be.
a
Even though I don't know if there's any snakes in New Jersey. Once
There's
again,
people like snakes,
that's
snaky
true.
people. Yeah.
That's true. So, meanwhile, Ned, who is looking for a romantic connection, nearly impels Brenda, who is another counselor, with an arrow while she's setting up the archery target. And despite almost being hit, she seems to be impressed with this. I don't know why,
Yeah.
but
Like she
you
wasn't
know,
thrilled, but then she's like, "What are you crazy?"
right? You're
Like
cute. See you tonight. Yeah. Like, goodness.
yeah, that was something. That was really
Yeah.
something. Yep.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So back on the road, Annie, flags down a Jeep passing by and catches a ride with another stranger. And she notices that the person giving her a ride misses a turn and won't stop the car. So she jumps out and tries to make a run for it through the woods. However, she doesn't get far. I'm just gonna say that Annie's throat gets slit,
It sure does.
and and she becomes our very first casualty. And during the scene, while I paid no attention to the quintessential fall and the falling every couple steps, the music was
Yes.
like chef's kiss, spot
I
on.
actually did note I noted Annie's doing the typical limp, fall on the ground, look behind her, horror movie getaway. That's
Yes.
exactly it's like, oh, my leg is hurt. And then you're like, oh, like it's very like, and then not only that, she doesn't even get that far before she just like stops trying to get away. Then she's just like walking through the woods. And it's like, someone is pursuing you. Like,
Yeah.
why would you? But that's what happens when you make dumb choices in the woods, I guess, right?
And that stranger did the quintessential I'm teleporting to in front of you somehow,
Yep.
because I was behind you, but
Yeah.
now I'm all of a sudden in front of you.
Hmm.
And
And she
yeah,
got. That's what
yeah,
happens. Yep.
so that's that. So
Yeah.
back at the camp, the counselors are enjoying a little R&R at the lake, and Ned starts to drown and everyone rushes to save him. They're on their thing, like they're preparing for this camp. They're saying, look, we're going to save these kids, we're going to save Ned, only to find out that this was a ploy for Ned to kiss Brenda.
Yeah.
So they he
Ned's. That's silly.
He is. He tried to kill her, then he wants to try to kill himself to get a kiss. So they all laugh about this, and Ned is heard apologizing. But once again, we get the sense that they're being stalked. Okay.
I like the
So,
way they do this. They're using like a POV camera, right? So we don't get
yeah,
any inclination of who is watching, exactly where they're watching from. It's
right.
always just like as if the camera is the eyes of the person. Um, just real quick, also, I know we said or we didn't say, so Jack is played by Kevin Bacon, who we get to
Yes.
see in a Speedo. So if you ever wanted to see that, this is your movie. I'm not saying I
Which
want to see it because I could have done without it, but if you want to see it, right here.
which I'm going to say this. It's funny because I didn't know that that was Kevin Bacon with that
No.
because I had turned my head and when I turned around, there was a wiener in my face. And
Hate
I
when
was
that
like,
happens. Yeah.
I was like,
You're like,
whoa.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm
Well, that
like,
was Kevin Bacon, so you're
oh,
welcome for that.
well, yeah, I had no idea. I was like, oh my God. And I paid no attention to that, like at all. I don't know what I was doing. I might have been like typing notes or something, but as soon as I turned around, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Usually we see boobies, but this time we did
Nope.
not.
Nope.
So
Not
yeah,
this time.
yeah. Um, so this next scene I'm going to talk a little differently about, just because of the nature of it. So I know it sounds like I'm getting very serious, and I kind of am,
Very
but
serious.
remember when the group was joking about the snakes being at the camp? Well, there is an impromptu scene here, that was not in the original script where Alice discovers a snake in her cabin. This idea was inspired by a real life incident involving Tom Savini, who's the special effects technician.
We love Tom
Yes.
Savini. Yes.
Yes, he's dope. He's done
Hmm.
a lot of great things. You should check out some
Hmm.
of his other work. And he's also a
Hmm.
stunt double in this movie later on. He does a lot of things.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. I
I
didn't know that
when we
part.
get to that part, I will tell you.
I'm excited.
Yeah. So, they this is based off something that happened to him, but unfortunately, um and I'm going to give you a trigger warning here in case you did not know this and you've seen this movie before. Um this scene doesn't showcase Savini's special effects work. There was a snake that's actually killed by Bill with a machete in this scene. Um, and according to an article on Screen Rant, during the time this movie was made, there were no regulations against animal cruelty on set at all. And it's especially disheartening to know that the snake was harmless and the handler that was on set for the snake was completely unaware that it would be killed, which understandably upset him very much. And for over 40 years, people debated whether this was a real or a fake scene. But thanks to the wondrous TikTok, we finally all have the answer to this. And I do want to make it clear that Tom Savini was not on set that day. He did not like instruct these people to do that. He didn't tell them like, hey, this would be a great impromptu scene. He didn't do any of that. He said he was off having girlfriend problems that day.
Happens to the best of us.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to feel like, oh my God, he's a special effects person. He could have made this with special effects, which a lot of people argued, but that's why he came out and said he was not there. So,
And he could have. He had
yeah,
the skills to pull that off. And I just think that's, disgusting. I'm not going to go on my whole TED talk about how terrible and awful that is.
yeah,
But it is, and the industry has changed in a lot of ways since then. So we can be thankful for that. But also, it's not okay that that happens.
yeah. I
Not okay.
and seeing that scene, I didn't know it was real. And then I watch most of my movies on Amazon, which gives you the little glimpses of what's real and what's not. So then I had to do some extra research and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like that they
Yeah,
would actually show that like that. But
yeah.
we do have to account for the times that there were no, laws or anything. But I'm glad that we do have them now, so you don't have to worry when, a T-Rex gets, impaled on a spike on screen. That T-Rex was not hurt. No T-Rexes
No
were hurt,
T-Rexes. I was
you
just
know.
gonna say that no T-Rexes were harmed.
No.
And where did we even get a T-Rex, is the question that I would ask in
We
that
can
scenario.
you can ask John Hammond. So all right. So back to our movie. Um, later we have an officer named Dorf, who arrives looking for Crazy Ralph, because that he was seen pedaling his bike towards the camp. And the kids claim that they haven't seen him before Dorf is called back to town by the sergeant or whoever. Meanwhile, as Alice is working in the kitchen, Ralph is actually discovered in the pantry. And I mean, they didn't see him, but he was there. And so he cryptically warns them that they're all doomed and they should leave before he gets back on his bike and pedals away, probably back to town. Okay. And that's the
Mhm.
end of Crazy Ralph. And after he departs, the kids start kitchen duties since Annie has mysteriously not shown up. She's a no-show. And they find that the generator is out. So Brenda, Bill, and Jack head out to fix it. And it's an easy fix, so it takes no time for them to fix that. Keep that in mind. Um, so at this point, Marcy and Jack share a romantic moment while Ned watches them longingly from a distance. It
Totally
seemed
normal.
yeah, it seemed a little creepy. And for some reason, and I didn't even think to look this up or anything. I felt like Marcy and Ned were siblings and he
Oh,
was watching them, not in a way like at first I was like, oh, does he want Marcy? But then the way she spoke about him later made me think that that was her brother or
oh,
cousin or
interesting.
something.
Her brother
Yeah.
cousin.
Yeah, because even when they were riding, right? Even when they were riding, I mean, it's not West
Listen,
Virginia, but
no, it's the deep New
it's the deep
Jersey shore.
Jersey.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know.
Gym tan laundry. So like even when they were in the car and Jack and Marcy are like making out next to Ned, he doesn't seem like he's off put by it. He seems absolutely fine, which I mean could just, be how the script was written. Like, hey, don't care that they're making out over there.
Well, it
But
was written in 2 weeks, as I learned in the Amazon facts. So, that does leave room for some plot holes or unanswered
interpretation.
questions or,
Yeah.
things of that nature. So, yeah.
Impromptu scenes.
Yeah.
So you never know. Well, Ned's watching them from a distance and he does decide to give them a little bit of privacy. And he walks off. And when he reaches one of the cabins, he sees someone standing in the doorway and he calls out to them and they turn away in silence. Now, like I always say, by the rules of horror movies 101, he does exactly what nobody else would do. He follows the stranger and keeps calling after them. And because he does this, he likely meets his demise. We'll see whether he does or not.
We're going to see what happens. But even he followed them into a structure, though, too. That's even like doubly no. Like you're outside, you call out someone, they don't answer you. And you pursue them indoors, which is probably what they wanted all along. And maybe that sounds a little paranoid, but we know better now. We have a
I
lot of
mean,
these movies as examples.
there are people here who were indoors and follow someone outside stupidly. So
There's that as well. There's
yeah,
that as
so
well.
so I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to follow anybody who's not supposed to be there. I'm going to go the other
No.
way, or I'm going to
Well,
call to my friends or something. You know what I'm
this
saying?
movie is definitely full of those tropes, like of the like violation of like the horror movie rules about like don't sneak off with your friends to like fornicate,
Yeah,
don't go drinking in the bushes. I mean, they didn't do that, but it's just like a rule. Don't follow people, strange people into buildings. Don't go investigate out loud outside by yourself, things like
right.
that. This has kind of all of those. Don't look behind you while you're running.
Yeah,
Just run,
yeah.
right?
Look where you're going when you're running, so you don't
Look
trip.
where you're going.
So
Oh my
there's
gosh.
that.
It's so simple, you think, but
Yeah.
you know.
Well, Ned follows person, like I said, into the cabin, and
Yeah.
Jack and Marcy eventually make their way towards that same cabin. And they have a moment where Jack and Marcy are talking about Ned, and Jack playfully calls out to Ned, unaware that Ned could be nearby. And at this point, a storm starts brewing, and it's the same storm that Steve said he wanted to be back before. And it's also later in the day, so I feel like it's not noon. So
No.
I don't know why it was written that he was going to try to come back before noon before it stormed. So
Yeah, that was kind of like a silly little, like almost unnecessary
it was
line.
super
Yeah.
unnecessary
Yeah.
considering what he's doing later. So anyway, uh,
Anyway.
while that storm is brewing, Marcy recounts a childhood dream where for some reason it was raining blood, but this does not stop them from taking shelter in a cabin for a little private one-on-one time. And they decide to slap skins, okay?
And that's against the rules we just said.
Yes,
Against the rules. Yeah.
typically. Now, at the main cabin, Bill strums his guitar while Alice lights a cozy fire. And feeling adventurous, Brenda suggests a game of strip Monopoly. Now, as they start setting up, we cut back to Marcy and Jack in the cabin, where we get a chilling view of Ned, dead with his throat slit, lying on the bunk above them. And the horror does escalate when Marcy leaves Jack to use the outhouse, and he's gruesomely stabbed through the neck with an arrow from beneath the bed, which
That
I
actually got
guess
me. That got
really
me. It
did
did.
it.
So I've seen this movie, I can't even tell you how many times. Many times. But it's been a while, so I forgot because a hand shoots out first and kind of grabs his head, and then the arrow comes through. But when the hand came out, I was like, I screamed a little bit in here in my apartment. So they did get me. But then I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I forgot.
And
Sorry.
me being the logic police, the first thing I thought of was how did they get the arrow to go through the
The
bed, through the
mattress.
mattress,
Yeah.
and through him? And on top of that, like, were they under the bed the
The whole
entire
time.
time? They were slapping skins? Like,
It just makes me think of that quote from Mrs. Doubtfire, where she's like, the whole time, just like under the bed. Because that's a great
right,
point. What were they doing? And the amount of force that it would take to drive that arrow
right,
through, even though the mattresses in that camp, they're like the
right.
jail mattresses,
They're
they're
very
thin,
thin, but
but
still.
still, no, I agree. And then through the person, because that
Yeah.
takes a lot of force in and of itself manually.
And I
And
mean,
you,
did you line it up first? Like, did you find like a little spot where you could line it up before you decide to put your hand over
yeah,
and then jab it through? Like that takes precision.
yeah.
Just like
A
that's
lot of
crazy.
precision. And also
Yeah,
if you think about it and you are thinking about it super logically, um, you need to pull your arm back to do that. And if you're laying on the
right.
floor, you cannot do that. I mean, not that I've done this before or anything.
Or has she? No. But
I
no.
am gonna take the Fifth Amendment and we're gonna keep going. We're just gonna
Yes.
keep going.
We'll move on. We'll move on. So yeah, he's killed. And meanwhile,
Yeah.
Marcy's over at the outhouse and she starts hearing some strange noises. And initially, she thinks they're from Jack or from Ned. So she wanders through the building, treating this like a game of hide and seek.
Ugh.
But unfortunately, she's not alone. The killer, who was just someplace else, somehow teleported here and finds her and delivers a fatal axe blow to her face, making her our fourth victim of the night. So, to recap, Annie is killed in the woods. Ned meets his end with a slit throat. Jack is struck with an arrow through the neck, and now Marcy has suffered a fatal axe blow to the face.
Racking them up.
Yes, very quickly.
Yep.
um, so now back at our strip Monopoly party, Brenda, now in, all right, of all things, Brenda, now in her underwear, realizes that she may have left the windows open in her cabin, and by now this storm is full force. You know, it's the strongest monsoon New Jersey, Virginia has ever seen,
And
right?
it's full of snakes now. All the
Well,
snakes have gone in through her window, just flush with
right.
snakes. Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So she decides to go in the storm with her underwear and a poncho, and she leaves, leaving Bill and Alice in the main cabin to clean up behind the strip Monopoly game and just tidy up the place. So now it is the dead of night. It's probably not midnight. It's probably around this is, summertime. So let's say it's dark now. It has to be at least 9 or 10, okay? And Steve, who I swear said he was going to be back by noon before it stormed, is sitting his ass at a diner having a coffee. Okay?
He's lollygagging, in the
Like he
words of my
had
grandpa.
he
Yep.
had no care in the world. And this is why I was like, why say that? Why say that line? Lines mean things. Like, unless he was trying to like get the kids to like work because they didn't know when he was actually going to be back. But like he was very blasé, blah blah about having this
Maybe he just
coffee.
wanted a day off and he tricked them. I was entertained in the scene by his like flirtation with that like old crazy waitress.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
was she was a I feel like her name was like Flo or something. Like she looked like a lady like that.
Her
She
name
was
is Sandy.
fair enough. Same shit. No, but she was adorable. But yeah,
She
no, he
was.
he was he just didn't even look like he was eating. Like he just had a
No, he had a
coffee.
coffee. That's it.
So where
Yeah.
was he the whole day?
That's what I'm saying. What was
Mm.
he doing the
He's
whole
being the
entire
goat, the
day?
cryptid goat man. He
Yeah,
is in
yeah,
the
he was.
area. Yeah.
Right. So, like she said, he was with an older waitress named Sandy, and she tries to get him to stay since it's pouring outside, but he insists he needs to get back to the camp because the kids don't know anything about the wilderness. They've never been at a camp before.
That's why he
So,
left them for the whole day. Makes a
right,
lot of sense.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So he puts on his yellow Georgie rain slicker. Okay, and heads out in his Jeep and pulls off. And I do need to point out that this scene with him in the Jeep reminds me of Jurassic Park. And I feel like I talk about Jurassic Park every single time, but it does remind me of when, like, Ned, who's also in a Jeep, is driving through the storm on his way to the boat. And like this is so reminiscent because he was in a slicker, Steve is in a slicker, they're both in Jeeps. It was like, and it's pouring down rain, and Steve is wiping the window, Ned was wiping the window. It
It's not
was
that far off. It's
no,
not.
it was very,
No,
very reminiscent. You know, I love Jurassic
me too. And we'll never get tired of the references either. Keep them
Yes,
coming. I want to hear it.
yes. Already referenced John Hammond earlier. So yeah. Um, yeah. So anyway, Brenda, we go back to her, and now we see Brenda is in the infamous outhouse. And like Marcy, she hears a noise, but she continues to wash up at the sink. Now, when she's finished, she looks over towards a noise that she heard several times before leaving. And we do see that there's a hand kind of
Oh,
creepily hanging around the door frame. But we know that she was never alone there. She doesn't know that, but we know
no.
that.
But again, this person, this mystery person, just always waiting, standing a la Michael Myers in different places and just being like, also the hand reminds me of Mary Shaw, Dead Silence, hands and like the dolls, which was a movie we will get to. We have to get
Yes.
to that because one, it's a good movie. Two, Donnie Wahlberg. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm just gonna leave that. I'm gonna leave
I like
that.
puppets.
We love puppets. No,
Yes. We were just talking
that's
about Billy earlier.
we
And there's
were.
plenty of Billies. We were not talking about Billy from Dead Silence because that
No,
doll is named Billy too. We are
we're
talking about
talking about the Saw
Billy
Billy.
from Saw, yes.
I feel like that's a weird, if anyone ever were to isolate this and it's just us screaming, we love puppets, it's probably like a weird.
Right? We love Billy the puppet. It's like, what? Don't clip that.
Listen, if you are here, we have to assume that you love creepy puppets as well.
Yeah,
That's what I'm going to assume about it, and that you're going to join us for all of our discussions about creepy puppets and maybe sometimes regular puppets too, you know.
that's true.
Never know.
Very true.
Yep.
Well, now we see that Steve's Jeep breaks down like Ned's. Well, Ned's got stuck in the mud, but
Hmm.
his Jeep breaks down. And fortunately, Officer Sergeant Tierney pulls up out of nowhere and gives him a ride, which was very, very lucky for him.
Very lucky. That's exactly what I was just thinking.
Yeah. So meanwhile, we have Brenda, who's now made it from the outhouse back to her own cabin. She's, got her nightgown on, she's chilling, and she's completely unaware that she's being watched through her window.
Also,
Sh
these cabins are so dingy. Sorry to cut you off, but
well,
anytime we see them, like I know they're like redoing it or whatever, but they're only opening in like a week and a half, and they're disgusting. And there's no lights in any of them.
well, I'm gonna be honest with you. They
Ugh.
look like the cabins that I was in.
No, really?
Yeah.
Oh
I
my
mean,
God.
it's not I mean, the cabins are not like all well back then. I when I went, this was like the 90s when I went, and that was the 80s. So I'm sure now cabins probably look much better if kids are going to camp. But it
Yeah.
was like dirty, dusty, dingy looking.
I'm not expecting them to be like like a hotel, you know what I mean? Like I have realistic expectations. I know what that looks like. But for them to be like they look like they've been abandoned for so long and like for real camps like to look like that where we're sending kids and it's like asbestos paint and like you're fine. Don't worry. It's
Just jagged, wood chips all over the place.
yeah, like loose nails coming out the boards and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
no, man, come on. We could do better.
We had a big giant hall that had like tables for everyone to eat, and there was a pantry in the kitchen. The same exact thing. It very, very similar, except we had a pool. Well, we had a pool. We didn't have a lake. We weren't near a lake.
Did you have like
So,
a crazy guy that hid in the pantry though?
you know, we might have. I don't know. Who knows?
Like not that you know of, but it's
Right?
only that you know of, so maybe.
Yeah, never know.
Crazy
Never know.
Ralph. Crazy
Right?
Ralph. Yeah.
So, Brenda, she's settling into bed with a book and she starts hearing a woman's voice pleading from outside for help. She's like, "Help me, help me."
Ugh.
And so this prompts Brenda to venture out in the rain in
Mm-mm.
her nightgown,
No,
barefoot, to investigate. Stupid. Stupid.
it is.
You were in your cabin where you could have been killed inside. But instead, you decide to venture outside and follow a disembodied voice that leads you, girl, to the archery range where we have a little foreshadowing from earlier that happened. um her close call with Ned is a distant memory in her mind, but we are left to imagine Brenda's fate as she screams off screen. So just think, we already had that close encounter of the first kind with Ned, and now this is the close encounter with the second kind with the disembodied voice that drew her outside in the rain. Weirdo.
I mean, this person who's doing this is smart, but it's not that they're that smart. It's that also these people are very dumb.
Gullible, yeah, they are.
Right? They're like,
And I
wait, what's
mean,
that in the bushes? Let me go check it out. And when it's
I'm
dark outside.
I mean, to a certain extent, I would want my camp counselor to be this vigilant. I really would, because that would let me know that they're not going to let like a little boy drown in the water. But
Yeah, I
you
would say
know,
so.
so I mean, maybe I do want them to be this vigilant. I know I wouldn't be that vigilant, so
But
I'm
you have to think about safety. Like, again, if we're being like realistic, like actually realistic, real life shit, right? If you hear something, if let's say that cabin was full of kids, right? And she hears that and she's the only counselor in there, you're going to leave all the kids to run into the bushes
no, I'm doing a
to
head count first.
investigate. Like, right. But you get another adult, right? To go, to assist, to go with you. Like, you don't just do that. So I do feel like that's a little irresponsible.
I will say
So,
they should, maybe they had two, because I know I keep referring to mine because it's the only thing I can refer to, right? There were two women counselors in our bunk that slept in the bunk with
yeah,
us. Even though, like I said, that at that time when I got scared of the bugs, they were sitting outside drinking Diet Cokes or Diet Pepsis or whatever.
that was their break time.
Yeah,
They're
so
too busy. I know, but that's what I mean. It's like, just come on, use your brain.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. So
we do what we can. We do
yeah.
what we can.
Well, back at the main cabin, Bill returns from checking the generator. And he says it's fine. And he only comes back only to find Alice wordly telling him that she thinks she heard Brenda scream outside, very specifically by the archery range. I don't know how she could pinpoint exactly where the scream came from or how far the
That
archery range is.
she's using echolocation to,
She's a
yeah.
dolphin.
That's the only thing that it could be. She's like, it's Brenda, and Brenda's at the archery range. I just
Right.
know it.
Considering
Yeah.
that at this point, Alice and Bill have no idea that Marcy is dead, that there's no other woman around, that Brenda, it could be Brenda, but they have no idea. So for
No
her to
idea.
just assume it's Brenda was crazy.
Yeah.
Um, but that is what it is. But so they decide that they're going to investigate. They head to Brenda's cabin first, where they discover a bloody axe in her bed. And I'm like,
Mm.
oh, bloody axe? You must know
Yeah.
us.
How many? How many
Right?
did they leave?
Hmm. They left one bloody axe.
Well, I mean, I think this deserves at least for, just a few of them, but
Yeah,
we'll
we
see.
digress. We'll see.
We'll see.
So they search the area for Marcy, Jack, Ned, and Brenda at this point, but their efforts yield no results. Alice suggests that they call for help, so they break into the office only to find that the phone lines have been cut. Then they try the car won't start either, and this leaves them increasingly more anxious about their situation. Now, as Steve is continuing his ride with the Sergeant Tierney, he receives an emergency call, the Tierney does, and has to leave, forcing Steve to walk the rest of the way back to the camp. But it's not that far. He's only like, maybe a couple feet away. And upon arriving at the entrance, Steve spots someone in the woods whom he thinks he recognizes. And you can tell because of how he kind of approached them. He's like, "Oh, hey, what are you doing out here?" And as he approaches them, he too falls victim to our killer. So with Steve's death, the kill count now rises to 6. Okay.
Yeah.
And we're counting Brenda, even though we did not see her die. We just assume her scream meant that she died.
We
Okay.
heard it. We heard it
Yes.
happen.
But by the rules of horror movies, if you don't see a body, they're not dead yet. So,
You're right.
but she's dead. We're going to say that. This is not that type of
You're
movie.
like,
She's dead.
but she's dead. She's
She's
dead
dead.
though. Okay.
So Bill now decides to return outside to check the generator because the generator has gone out again. He leaves Alice to rest alone, which, funny enough, there's a little goof in this scene. Like nobody's mouth is moving, but the audio is going. So there's like no sync up. And it was so weird because I'm like, are they talking? And they purposely aren't showing their mouths, but you could tell they're not talking. So it was very interesting.
They were like, just leave it. The
Yeah,
movie's pretty much done. Just leave
it's
it. It's fine.
fine.
Good
So,
enough.
right.
Good enough.
So when Bill gets over to the generator, he expects it to be out of gas, but he discovers it's actually still full. And so this scene introduces us to our one real jump scare as it abruptly cuts to Alice screaming Bill's name, which got me. That got me. Like, because I really was not expecting her to scream so loud. She could have been inducted into Scream Queens because I was like, oh my God. Um, so she's screaming Bill's name, having woken up from some type of nightmare, perhaps. And she heads to the kitchen to make the world's longest coffee.
She was making coffee forever.
Which this is building tension with her silent, worried demeanor. So I know why they did it. It was just a long, unnecessary scene, in my opinion. But it's supposed to build that tension because we know what's going on, but we don't know what's going on with Bill because Bill hasn't returned, but we know everyone else is dead. And
Right.
so, it's a little worrisome. So she decides she's just going to go search for Bill. And when she gets to where the generator is, she only finds his rain slicker, which is fine because at this point the rain has stopped. There's no rain at this point,
Mhm.
and it makes it plausible that he left it behind and walked someplace else.
Sure.
Um, but we do know otherwise. Now, Alice eventually does find Bill, gruesomely impaled against the door with arrows, including one through the eye, marking our most brutal kill thus far. This was the most brutal
Sure.
one. And I do want to say I have a little fun fact for you, per usual.
Oh.
So Adrienne King, who played Alice, was not allowed on set that whole day when they were setting up Bill's kill scene. So
Oh.
her reaction when she finds him is genuine. She's genuinely freaked out and
That's
scared by that.
awesome.
Yeah.
I wonder if she knew he was, I mean, I assume she knew he was going to be there,
Yeah, but I don't think she knew
but
how
not
bad the
the,
scene was going to be
yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
if you think about it, everybody else's death is not gruesome.
Right.
It's like someone gets their neck gets slit or they get an arrow through the throat or an axe to the head, but nothing like this. He has all
No.
types of arrows through his body. He's hanging up against a door and he has an arrow through his eye. And I will also say that Harry Crosby, who played Bill, was also injured during the scene.
Oh no.
The fake blood that was used around his eye had a really strong irritant that caused temporary blindness in that eye.
Oh
He was
no.
blind for a
My
while.
gosh. Really?
Yeah, and he experienced significant pain. And if you do look at that scene closely, you can see his other eye is twitching because he was in a lot of pain during that scene. He had to stay still. But I ran it back to look, and his eye is definitely twitching.
Oh
Um,
my God.
and it's a shame because that day, Tom Savini had to leave with an emergency. So his assistant is who set up all of the special effects. And he is the one who messed up because whatever prosthetic they had on his eye, it wasn't fitted close enough, so the blood was seeping into his real
Oh
eye. So
no.
that's why that happened because the assistant didn't do a good enough job,
Yeah. Tom
unfortunately.
Savini is the man. He's a master of his craft and maybe he was like an intern or some shit. That's terrible. Tom probably felt
Yeah,
really bad about that. But he was going through girlfriend problems at the time. He's like,
yeah,
I have an emergency, but the emergency is she just threw all his shit out on the lawn.
probably.
And he was, yeah.
I can't with him. He definitely was gone at the most interesting times. So
Yeah.
Lord.
Yeah. Poor
But
Tom.
yeah.
We're sorry. Well, we hope all your shit's resolved now so you can go back to doing
Yes.
zombies for the Walking Dead or whatever you're doing.
Right.
Jesus.
So at this point, Alice, our final girl, returns to the main cabin desperately trying to secure the doors and windows to survive the night. And in her panic, she piles various items against the door, perhaps not noticing that the door opens outwards. So, that's a little weird. But who has time to worry about that when,
She
everyone
also
around them is dead?
she took such a long time to barricade the door too. And that did come up in the Amazon thing. I'm sure you read that as well. It said it's
Yeah.
character goof.
Yeah.
Um, where it's like she did that because if someone just opened the door, you did all that
Right.
for you spent all that energy for nothing.
Which
It was very silly.
which is funny because, a little bit later she like burst out of there like Kool-Aid Man and it didn't take long for her to get out. So,
Nah,
I
it's
mean,
easier. She stacked it all up and then she just like pushed it out the
but
way.
she
So
had a whole like rope tied around the
she
doorknob and
did.
stuff
That it
like
was like,
that.
wasn't it tied to the ceiling or
I think it was
something?
tied to a
Like
chandelier or something. Yeah, it
a
was interesting.
chandelier and these glamorous cabins.
Not a chandelier, not a
It was
chandelier.
definitely tied to a chandelier at Camp Crystal Lake, everyone. Like a Phantom of the Opera-esque golden
I don't
chandelier.
know. I don't know why I thought chandelier, but that's exactly what I was thinking of.
Well,
It's probably a wood
sometimes
plank.
in those kind of like lodges and stuff, they have those like antler ones.
Yes,
Like maybe. You never know. We never know, but no, that's
never.
funny. And that's, like she references Jurassic Park. I like to reference Phantom of the Opera.
Hey,
So that I got that in there, nice and smooth. There we go.
right. So now, as she's frantically searching for like some type of plan, Brenda's corpse is suddenly hurled through the kitchen window, and that corpse is Tom Savini. That is him. He is the
Oh,
stunt double flying through the window.
wow. Tom
So yeah,
Savini passing as a lady corpse. Good for you, my
yes.
guy.
Also, I forgot to mention he is the hand that we see in the outhouse. So that is his hand.
I hope they paid him for all these extras that
He is
they sent him.
uncredited for the hand. I don't, but he was paid as a stunt person as Brenda flying through the
The
window,
nerves.
right?
I love that he was just like around. He's like, yeah, whatever you guys need, I'll just do. I'll be the hand,
Right,
I'll be a corpse, I'll be whatever, That's
right. Which
good.
is just interesting,
Team spirit,
right?
Yeah.
So as Brenda Tom Savini comes flying through the window, this sends Alice into a paralyzing state of horror, a state of terror. So she scrambles back into the main room. She's like, "Oh God!" And she sees headlights outside. She's like, "Yes, Steve is coming back." And so she starts tearing her barricade apart. She runs outside, you know, trying to get to this Jeep that she sees, only to find out that there's an older woman in this Jeep. And so the woman introduces herself with a chilling smile as Pamela Voorhees, a friend of the Christie family, which, if you remember, Steve's last name is Christie, and they were the
Hmm.
original owners of the camp. So she's a friend of the family
Not Chris Christie, the old mayor or whatever of
of
New
New Jersey.
Jersey. There, it's not the
He was
same
a
thing.
governor, right? Yeah.
Yes, sorry, the governor. I don't keep
The
track.
mayor of New Jersey.
Yeah, she was a friend of Chris Christie's, and I'm just a regular Christie's. It's okay. It's fine.
Yes. So relieved yet shaken, Alice clings to Pamela and is desperately explaining that everyone is dead. And unfazed, Pamela insists on going to see the situation for herself. And when Alice warns her that they'll kill her too, Pam unnervingly responds, "I'm not afraid."
With a
So,
smile too. I'm not
right.
afraid.
Right.
No.
So she saunters over and into the cabin with Alice following closely behind. They find Brenda's lifeless body on the floor, and Pam starts to express her dismay that Steve ever even reopened the camp, recounting the tragic drowning of a young boy and the murder of two camp counselors who were involved in inappropriate behavior at the time. It's their fault they weren't paying attention to the boy because they were too busy fornicating.
Mm-hmm.
So, as Pamela's true nature starts to emerge, Alice starts to realize with some dread that she might have let the monster inside. So, Pam then reveals the boy's name is Jason and that she was working at the camp the day he drowned and she was in the kitchen. And she grips Alice by the arm, shaking her as she stresses that Jason should have been watched. He wasn't a good swimmer. And her mood suddenly shifts and she tries to convince Alice that now it's time to leave. Let's just go. But Alice, now knowing that something is definitely off, says that she'll wait for Steve. And Pamela starts hearing Jason's voice calling for help from the lake. Now, at this point, she finally confesses that Jason was her son and that it was his birthday that day, Friday, June the 13th.
Mm-hmm. There it is. There's our Friday the 13th.
Yes.
I love the way that she does the way she delivers the line I like, but it's interesting because it's like she's answering almost like her visions of him, her hallucinations of Jason. And he's like, "Mommy, mommy, help." And she's like, "I'm trying." And she's like,
Yeah.
"You see, Jason was my son. Today's his birthday." But like moments ago, she was almost like violent and she was like, "They should have been watching him every minute." So we start to see that she's not as, as balanced, I'll say, as
Yeah.
she originally appeared. She's a little out there, a little bit.
Yeah. 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 She's actually she's a little off. She's schizophrenic for real. So
A little bit.
yeah. So she says that it's Friday the 13th. That is Jason's birthday. And now at this point she slips, revealing her intention was to never let this camp reopen. And then she finally fully unravels, hallucinating and believing Alice was the one who let Jason drown. Now they begin the fight. This starts that if you ever watch Family Guy, that fight with Peter and the chicken, this is what starts right now between them. And so they start fighting. Alice knocks Pamela down to the ground and she flees. Now, desperate to escape, Alice runs to the Jeep only to find Annie's lifeless body inside. I would have left Annie in the woods, but apparently Pam had the strength to bring her
Right?
back into
Think about
the
that.
Jeep.
You got to drag her ass all the way back
Right.
to the car, pick her up, put her in the seat too, like buckle her in. She's like, "Buckle up for safety." Like, what? Like,
Mind
what are
you,
you
let's
doing?
let's keep in mind that Pam is at least like in her 60s.
Oh yeah.
At least. Because she was an adult in 1958 and it's now 1980. Okay. And so she has to be, and she looks like a woman of advanced age. So
Yeah.
her doing all of this also baffles me, but I'll save that for later.
Movie magic. Movie magic.
Yes.
Yep. Hmm.
So, um, you know, Alice starts to panic and she runs and she stumbles per usual because it's a horror movie. And then she sees Steve's body hanging, I think it was from a tree. Again, like he was hanging from up above. So how, Pam, are you doing all this by yourself so quickly without any help? You're not out of breath. Your hips don't hurt, nothing. Okay. So
So hurt.
I'm just like, girl, how? I lay in the bed wrong and my hip will hurt. So,
She's taking that hyaluronic acid, Yeah.
right. So now Pam does reappear and she's speaking as if she were Jason himself, pleading with herself not to let Alice escape. And this is the part where, yeah, she's like, kill her, mommy, kill her. And she's like, I am Jason. And it's just like,
Ma'am,
okay.
are you
Like,
okay? Yeah.
also, if you know the iconic is actually like ma ma ma.
I have a problem with that. So I
Why?
have read that. I've heard it many times before as well. It doesn't sound like that. So I read probably the same thing you read about how the guy um meant
Yes.
for it to be kind of almost like an abbreviation of kill, 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 ma, ma, ma. Right, right. We get that. We get that.
Right.
And this same person who devised that idea was the person who said it. So it makes sense. It stands to reason that he delivered what he wanted us to hear, but for some reason, that is not what it sounds like, despite me believing that that's what he said. I believe that story, but it's not the sound. Do you like
It
I'm
doesn't sound like that. It sounds like that's
Yeah,
what it sounds like. It doesn't sound like even though,
yeah.
I you guys don't know. I have never mentioned this. I used to sing opera, right? So,
Fun, no big deal,
right, fun
everyone.
fact, fun fact.
She's like, anyway, so I used to sing opera.
But I used to do a lot of phonetics because I had to sing in other languages. But the
Sure.
phonetics between like the and the it does sound close. It's close. And the ha 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 can sound like blah ma ma, depending upon how they put it in the microphone, you know. So I could see how it could sound different because I don't hear ki ma ma ma. I hear chi ha ha ha. That's what I hear. But I can understand where it's coming from and how what it's supposed to be, and I can understand it being the key
So
key ma
maybe
ma
the
ma.
delivery was just not what it needed to be, pretty
It's
much.
it's possible also, like, when they actually do all the rendering of the sound and whatnot.
That it gets almost
uh
like
yeah,
distorted, kind of.
because you're going to layer those sounds. You're not going to have it just be one flat sound.
Of
They probably
course.
did like three different takes at least of the same thing and then merge them together, so it's going to be slightly off. Like, you're going to have one that starts a beat slightly before the other one and stuff
I
like that.
wonder if there's anyone who's listening who does hear it as it was intended. I want to know. Please let us know. Drop it in the comments, drop it on the Insta, the
Yes.
Facebook, whatever. Just curious. I'm not going to fight you. I know last episode I was talking about fighting people a lot for some
Right.
reason. I apologize kind of for that. I really just want to, I'm just curious because I've never heard it that way. And every time I hear this story, it irritates me, not because I believe it's untrue, but just because I just don't hear it. Maybe
Yeah.
that's a me problem. Maybe it's a us problem because you said you hear the
I
same
hear it that way
way,
too. But like I said,
right?
I hear a lot of things wrong. I was listening to a song earlier and I was thinking to myself how I'd never heard the correct words until I was a full blown, like an adult of an advanced age. And I was like, I can't believe I was saying these wrong words. Like,
Yeah. Well, that's like there's not to take too much of a sidebar, but that one that guy we like, the workout guy we like on
oh
YouTube.
yes,
And there
get
was that
fit with
one
Rick,
song, Get
people.
Fit with Rick. Shout out to Get Fit with Rick.
Yes.
We like you a lot. We like your accent and the way that you look. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna say. Um, but there's this one song that every time I heard it until I finally looked up the lyrics, um, someone saying something about like want to taste the clouds, but
Yes.
I kept hearing taste the ground, like she was trying to curb stomp someone, and I couldn't unhear it. And finally I looked it up so it could rate itself in my brain. But that's an example of that where I was like, this song is like a pop song and she's talking about curb stomping someone. It doesn't really seem like it goes together. Let me look into this a little bit further.
Which, funny enough, now that song comes up in my Spotify and just plays on my little DJ list, and I'm like, how
Yes.
did that happen? But I never knew the words either, and I
No.
don't know what I was saying. I was like, meow 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 meow.
Do you guys
So,
know the song we're talking about, the Get Fit with Rick? Rick himself, you're if you're around, you want to get in on this conversation. We're
right.
open to that. But yeah, no, I definitely understand that too. But this one, even like people when they like joke around with you, and this is an iconic franchise, and everyone knows Friday the 13th, even if you're not necessarily a horror fan. People when they joke with you and they mess with you, they try to scare you, you hear them go
Hmm.
like that's what you hear. So it's like,
Exactly.
I guess we're not alone, right? But let me know again, like I said, if we're crazy, let us know. I mean, not just in general, because yes, but just about this specific topic. Please and thank you.
Yes.
Just want to know. Yeah.
Yes. So we know at this point Pamela is clearly mentally unstable. She does find Alice in the camp's office and they start fighting again, like Peter and the chicken, with Pamela slapping the crap out of Alice violently. I mean,
Bitch
it's some,
slapping her.
yeah,
Yeah.
she definitely was. And this was a scene that was choreographed by Tom Savini.
Yes.
Yeah, because it said that the scene was like really, really boring, and they were like, "No, let's show you how to do a couple slaps here and there."
I was curious about that because they were saying it was bad. It was him. Who was it? Someone else? I thought they said it
I
was
think it
someone
was
else
him and
too.
his assistant that probably got the blood in the eye. I think
Yeah,
it
but
was him.
I guess they were like watching the fight and they were like, it's terrible. So
Yeah.
they volunteered their services. But I want to know, I want to see the terrible take. I want to
I
see
just
that.
you know what I assume it was? I
Mm.
assume it was like shaking violent because to be
Like,
quite honest, the woman who plays Pamela
yeah.
Voorhees reminds me of like an old like daytime soap opera type actress.
Okay.
And so in my mind, I can just see like a dynasty type thing, and she's like shaking. Oh my God, get out of there! Like that's what I just see what the fight is. Like they're like, oh,
And Alice is getting
oh.
like whiplash and she's like,
Yes.
oh,
So
yeah,
that's what
okay.
I see. But
Okay.
which,
That makes sense. That makes
which,
sense.
it makes it even more funny to me because again, Tom and I guess the assistant or whomever, they choreographed this. Which after Pam is slapping Alice around, Alice it's like squarely knocks this lady in her jaw. Like she jaws the hell out of her. And I'm like, oh my God. Like Alice, where did you get that right hook from? Like she really hit her hard. And I love the sound effects because it's really like smack. And I'm not gonna
Almost
reference.
like the Batman,
I
like the old
thought
like Pow! Like,
Pow!
yeah,
Kabowie!
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's so much funnier knowing that they had to choreograph this because they were probably shaking each other and rolling around on the ground like they were jello
I
or
did
something.
picture the rolling around, like where it's like they get on top and then they shake the person
Yes,
and then the other person takes a turn. It's like
which
no one,
happens later on anyway.
but
So,
no one fights like that. Like no one has
no,
ever fought like that.
no,
Um, I'm not like an expert on it, but I'm just saying it just is very silly.
that's true. I agree with that. So when she punches her in the face, she she knocks Pamela to the ground long enough for her to escape to the main cabin where she tries to hide. She turns off all the lights and she goes to take refuge into the pantry. But Pam, I see where her son gets it from. Pam just gets up relentlessly, gets back on her feet and like just, very spry goes
Oh
back to
yeah.
hunting her final victim.
Well, this part, I don't know if you picked up on this, but so I was noting at the moment and I hear the music and I look and I was like, this is very Hitchcock. Like that's it, the specific like violins
Yeah.
was exactly like Psycho. Um,
It's a very Hitchcockian moment. Yes.
it was cool too though because it was the same like I guess they must have taken like elements of it. And obviously even though this is a mother and if you were familiar with Psycho, it's reversed kind
Versed.
of. It still was it was cool to kind of get like an homage to that, whether they meant to or not, but I imagine they were influenced by it at least a little bit.
But I mean, I can see that because we're in Psycho, we have a son who plays a mother and is a little, batshit crazy.
A little
And
bit,
then we have, in this instance, a mother whose son is speaking out through her because she's
right?
schizophrenic. So, I mean, it is a role reversal here.
Oh yeah.
So,
The
yes, I can see
scoring
that.
though, it was still original, but
Oh,
it
yeah.
still had such elements of, especially at that part, like I was like, wow, that's I always like when they kind of you get kind of like a clear reference to something while they're still doing something very original. That's something I always
Yeah.
appreciate. Much like in
Yeah.
Killer Clowns from Outer Space with all the movies we got, movie references we got in there, you know.
Yes, including that Godzilla kaiju one, which I was very proud about. I was super proud that I got that. And I was so mad that I could not remember like kaiju while I was talking. So I love kaijus, okay? And
Yep.
so, but yeah, we love a good reference. We love a good callback. Like when you can clearly see the callback, it's really, really nice. Um, and like you said, and it's still original. They're not just like picking it up and just like completely plagiarizing a callback.
There is another movie reference in this at the end of the movie. I don't know if you picked up on it or not. I'm not going to spoil it. We'll get there when we get there, but there is another movie reference in this
Well,
movie. I'll
I'm
just say
excited
that.
to see.
I'll
We
say
will
that.
see.
Hmm.
So now, Pam, like I said, Alice is hiding in the pantry. Pam tracks her down like a bloodhound, breaks down the pantry door, which again, this also gives me a very much The Shining.
Same, because the way she looked through the door.
Yes, she like breaks it open with a hatchet, or it's a machete actually. She breaks it open with the machete, and then yeah, she just stands there. I expected her to say, you know, who's
These movies
Johnny or
actually came
whatever.
out in the same year. I just
Oh,
looked it
okay.
up because I was curious about The Shining. But I mean, it was in the book anyway, the breaking down the
Yeah.
door. So
But the style of it, they could not have gotten that.
no,
So, that was just
maybe
a
they had
happy
people
coincidence.
maybe they had people working on the same sets that was like, it's a great idea. And they were like telling the other people too,
Right.
telling
Well,
Stanley Kubrick,
right.
Kubrick. I never say
Kubrick.
his name right.
I know it's a hard name to say.
I'm sorry, Stanley. I'm so sorry.
But yeah, no, I mean, that was pretty cool. But yeah, so she gets in there and she's wielding this machete, and Alice once again hits Pamela in the face, but this time with this cast iron skillet, and runs towards the lake. And I'd love to say that this is the point where Pam throws in the towel, but no, the chase will continue.
Hmm.
So Alice runs towards the lake. She's exhausted. She decides to sit by a canoe. Why she would decide to do this, I don't know, considering that you did not kill that lady. You knocked her out with a cast iron skillet. But as Alice is, sitting there relaxing, Pam appears behind her, ready to strike her with the machete. But Alice catches her reflection in the water and blocks the attack with an oar. Almost like she was planning this, but poorly, because the oar was split in half by this machete. Okay. Now, this is a brutal struggle. This is the fight that Tom said this is crappy because now they are struggling on the ground, rolling back and forth in the sand while someone's getting slapped and punched and their head banged into the sand several
Oh my God.
times. This is the true girl fight that we were looking for earlier, like celebrity deathmatch, okay?
Yes.
So
Oh, wow. Celebrity deathmatch. Yes.
yes, this is a very desperate fight, but Alice does break free. She grabs a machete, and in one powerful swing, she decapitates Pamela Voorhees.
It was a beautiful effect
Yes,
as well. They just clean the head. You got to see all the
the gooey
giblets within. It was
juiciness,
great.
yes.
Yeah, I loved it.
you know. And so at this point, there's some nice music. It's really triumphant. It's letting you know that things are getting better, and it's like swelling. And Alice, she's drained, feeling victorious. She climbs into one of the canoes and drifts into the middle of the lake, finally succumbing to sleep. It's been a long night. It's been a long day,
The
and
longest.
she's done. And so in the morning, police discover her floating on the water in the canoe. And as she awakes, again, the music is still beautiful. It's still playing. It's a beautiful morning. I didn't even mean to do that, but all of a sudden it just came out.
If
But that,
if it comes to you, you just got to go with it. You just roll with it, you
but
know?
that's what it was. It was a beautiful morning for real. And you know, she's dazed, but she's so relieved that she survived the night. And as she smiles, a corpse, the corpse of
The
baby
one.
of baby Jason Voorhees from 1957 bursts out of the lake like a chest burster and drags her under the water, okay?
Yeah.
And then Alice jolts awake in a hospital bed, gasping, because was this a dream? Maybe not. But Sergeant Tierney is there because he's probably the only cop left. And she asks if everyone at the camp is dead. Like, is this real? Like at this point, I'm sure she's like, is that real? I'm not sure. He confirms that they are, and she asks him about Jason. She says, Jason, the boy who pulled her into the water. And he tells her there was no boy. And Alice's final words leave us with a very eerie thought. Then he's still there. And that, my friends, is the twisted tale of the original Friday the 13th.
Yeah. So many people think and believe that Jason was always the killer in this franchise. And really, the very first killer in this movie was his mother. So
Yes.
that's a reminder for you. The movie fact I had for you at the end, with Jason popping out of the water was actually an ode to Carrie, Stephen King's
Oh,
Carrie.
really?
Um, I mean, this came out in the 70s, but as a spoiler, at the end of Carrie, her hand shoots out of the ground and grabs her friend who is visiting her. So that is a little bit of an ode to Carrie, which I'm sure we'll also cover at some point. Because whenever anyone asks me, what superpower would you have if you could have one? I said, I want to be like Carrie. I would get into a lot of trouble. But that's what I want. But no, it's it's an interesting movie. But also
Yeah,
I love the introduction of the machete that she has because we see that is Jason's weapon of choice as
it
we move
is.
through the series. And also, I mean, I know we didn't get Jason in this movie. Um one of my favorite Jason kills is when the kid in the sleeping bag, he just hits against a tree. Like, oh, it's so good. So good.
Yes.
But yeah, so that's Friday the 13th.
Well,
On
yeah,
Friday
tell
the
me,
13th.
right? Tell me more about how you feel about this movie.
How do I feel? I'm torn because it's not my favorite Friday the 13th movie. I want Jason. We all want Jason. That's who we want, you know. And I've seen the remakes too, but like no, no. Like they remade the like original
Yeah.
Friday the 13th with Jason in it. But I remember they made him run in it. Did you see that one, the remake?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was one of the first things that I saw. And I was like, I can't even. I watched the rest of the movie, but I blocked it out because I was like,
Yeah, I can't really remember it. I know that I saw it. I can't
it's
remember.
forgettable. It was
Yeah.
completely forgettable. But that's the thing is like when you take someone who is an iconic um character and you change them fundamentally. Like you make them run where they always walked calmly and they always wound up, like you said, teleporting
Right.
to where people are. That bothers me very much. But yeah, for nostalgic reasons, this kicked off like an empire, this kicked off a franchise. It's like I like it. I don't love it. There's a lot of, I don't want to say time wasted in this movie because it's a classic. No, but it's a classic movie, and there weren't a ton of slashers like this prior to it. Do you know
That's
what I
true.
mean? So it's like
Yeah.
it's historical. So like I said, I like it, but it's like there's so many long shots that don't lead to anything. Um, and the shots that we do get that where there is action, it's like not great. Like that really
Right.
extended um fight. But like I said, nostalgia for all the other reasons. Like I like it so much, but
Yeah.
I don't love it. But the score, like there's so many good things about it. Um, so yeah, it's not like a deep movie. Like you can take it for what it is.
Right.
There's not like, well, what do you think they meant
Yeah,
when
no, it's very straightforward.
you get it, you see it and you get it. That's what happens. But yeah, what about yourself? What are your thoughts? What are your feelings?
So I saw this movie once, but not completely in its entirety. I don't think, I mean, obviously I knew the story. I definitely knew the story. I knew what was happening.
Sure.
Um, and I have to say that I really love this movie. I really, really love this movie.
Oh, I love
Um,
that.
yeah, like I used to watch there's an eerie, not eerie, sorry, an indie film game developer that made a Friday the 13th game, and it has all of the elements of this movie. I mean, it's a later movie. It's copying a later movie,
Yeah.
but you can see a lot of elements like in the game. They have like the phone line is cut. The car doesn't work. The people are running through the
Mm.
woods, you know. I believe honestly one of the characters is based off of Alice, to be quite
Mm.
honest. So like I watched that a lot, okay? And so this gave me such nostalgia. I really, really
Yeah.
loved it. Um, and like you said, it's not something that's deep. It's not something that's like thought-provoking or anything. But I'm always the one that's like, take it for the time when it came out. This is
Yeah,
the 1980 movie. And so I thought that it was decent for that.
absolutely.
I like that this is the kickoff for the franchise. And also it's so funny because if you've ever watched any type of Friday the 13th movie, Jason teleports. And his mother was doing that throughout this movie. I'm like, that's crazy because, like we said, she was in the outhouse. And all of a sudden, she was out at the archery range. She was in the car when Annie jumps out, but then she was suddenly in front of her. And it's just like, you see, like you said, you brought up the machete. That's his
Yeah.
weapon of choice. So it's very interesting to
Oh yeah.
see that they've adopted all of these things into his character when he actually is in the movie. Um, and I just love that. So
I
yeah.
agree. I feel like the ones that came after wouldn't have been as strong without this.
Oh
Without
yeah.
this as the groundwork. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
all of those kind of things that we make fun of, all of those tropes, all of the rules that are broken, this is around the time where those things started to even develop for us to
Right.
make fun of. So
Right.
without these movies, that's what I mean is like I'm torn because it's like it's not my number one favorite, but when you think of it for the time, right? And the history and what it's done for like the horror genre in general, like it's so we wouldn't be where we are today without this. So it's so important. Um just it's just not my most favorite, you
Yeah.
know?
And I mean, I can't say that it's my favorite Friday the 13th movie per se, but I definitely really like this one.
Yeah, yeah.
The only Friday the 13th movie I've seen plenty of times, multiple times is Jason Goes to Manhattan, Jason Takes Manhattan. I've
I
seen
lo
that a
I
billion
love
times.
that that's the one because that's one of the ones that's regarded as like one of the lesser ones. But we love Kane Hodder. We love him
Yes,
so much. One of the
yes.
scenes I like, and I always like when I see it made into a reel because I feel like it's relatable to me, um, is a scene where Jason's walking down the street in Manhattan and those kids are playing like the
Yes.
boombox really loud, and he just kicks it because he's just not about it. Um, he's like, ugh, these people, but no, I definitely get that. One of the ones I really like a lot, and it is cheesy, but we know, if you watch Killer Clowns, I like schlock, I enjoy it. Freddy vs. Jason. I love Freddy
I'm
versus Jason.
I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that. The one movie I definitely don't like is Jason X.
I was gonna say
Though
yes.
I like Uber Jason. Uber Jason is the shit, okay? I like the costuming. I like how he looks. I just that movie is ass, okay? It's
I
trash.
remember, so I think I was working my first ever job, maybe around the time that movie came out. And I remember there was a Halloween costume for it. And I was like 15, my first job. And it was one of those places, it wasn't Spirit, but like, the costumes are on the wall and like they come in the bag and whatever. And I was just like, what the hell is it? Like I just thought it was so silly. That was like Jason in space. That was like, I can't
Yeah.
even, I will never watch. I still haven't watched. I can't bring myself to. I did
Yeah.
hear, I don't know if we talked about this or where I saw this, but they said something about they're thinking about making like a Chucky in space movie.
We didn't talk about that
We
because
don't need we don't
no.
need Chucky to go to space, you guys. We don't need it.
Yeah, don't no thank you.
But that to me it's just weird because it's like I know that you're looking for a new movie and a fresh take, but it's like
That's
think
not
about
it.
no, but think about that in terms of anyone else too. Like it doesn't make sense. Like Michael Myers in space,
Yeah.
Freddy
Freddy in
Krueger
space.
in space. Like it
Yeah.
no, no.
Pinhead in space, even though he's like
Well,
a third dimensional, like a
what about
other dimension
Frank?
type person.
Do you remember Frank with the skin? He has no skin. Just send him into space. That's
Right.
another Hellraiser, if you guys are dated references. I know we have a mixed kind of listenership. We have people, who want to hear the new stuff. We have a lot of people that want to hear the older stuff. So, I don't
Like
want to
1920s old Nosferatu silent films.
it was just I posted on the Instagram story today that it was just the lead actor's birthday, Max
Oh
something. Let me look at it for our silent film
well.
buffs. I'll find it. But yeah, I mean that is an iconic horror movie, certainly.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
they
Absolutely. It's
actually do.
classic.
There's a place. Is it still there? Nope, it's gone. Maybe it was yesterday. There's a place nearby, around Halloween time where they actually screen in a church. I think it's Saint. It's like I'm gonna forget, but it's like Saint John the Divine or something. I think it's like in the Brooklyn, Manhattan area. They screen Nosferatu and someone plays live organ music.
Ooh, I
Right? I'm like,
love.
oh, that's like that would be a good if anyone wants to take me on a date, like probably don't because I don't want to go. But if you do, that's the place where you offer that to me. I'm interested. Maybe not in you, but going to that place. And there's like candles and there's stained glass windows and stuff. Like, yes, I'm
That's
like
giving
very,
very much Phantom.
yeah.
Yeah,
Everyone,
for sure.
and just as another reference to that, and I may have said this before, growing up, loving Phantom of the Opera, I always wanted to be Christine. I always wanted to be the ingenue, the object of the desire. And now as an old lady, I'm just like, I'm the Phantom. I live underground. I am a little creepy. I like candles and chandeliers and organ music. So, I mean, sometimes things don't work out how you want.
That's true. I listen, at my advanced age, I feel like I'm Quasimodo in the bell tower, so I get it. I get it. Okay.
But listen, those are still cool characters.
They
Like,
are.
you
They
know,
are. You know,
capes,
humps.
mystery, humps.
Yeah. You don't
You
see, but I
know,
got a hump back there. You just can't see it. I keep it
and it's
hidden.
frankly is none of your business what we
That's
have going
right.
on. So just just throwing it out. It's nobody's business.
Oh,
So you said you love this movie. So how many bloody axes are you gonna rate this? What are you gonna rate this?
oh,
Remember last time
I'm
you were like, I really like this movie. I'm gonna
I'm
give
giving
it a
a five.
five.
I know.
That
That's
was
so
funny.
funny.
That was funny.
Um, honestly, I really like this movie. So I'm going to give it a
Five.
nine.
Oh, a
And
nine.
I
Okay.
wanted to give it a 10, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm sure this is not my favorite. I have to say, this is not my favorite movie. So
Yeah.
giving it a 10 would be mean I would put this in a favorite category. For the
Yeah.
Friday the 13th franchise, yes, it could hold up as one of my favorite Friday the 13th movies, but in the grand scheme of all the movies we watch, it's not going to
I
be
get that. I
a
was
favorite in
thinking
that
about
sense.
that yesterday about, when we have so many movies to watch and we plan on doing this for a while, everybody. We're going to be doing this for a while. Um, when you think of it like that, it's like sometimes maybe you think, I really want to give something a 10, but like in the scheme of every horror movie ever made, is it a favorite? Do I love it
Right.
that much? So it's like I've been thinking about that as well.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. You
Yeah.
like it that much. And it's so iconic. It's so important to the genre that we love
It
so much.
is. It
So I get that. That
is.
makes sense to me. I'm trying to think like I just feel like because it's not my favorite, but I recognize it's important so much. I want to give it like an 8.3.
That's fair too.
Yeah, no, it's good. Like I said, I understand the significance and that's not lost on me and Tom Savini. I do take points off for the snake. There's points off for the snake. Um, and Mrs. Voorhees' hairdo it was not my favorite.
Yeah. Yo, I read that Siskel from Siskel and Ebert.
Oh, I know what you're gonna say.
Yeah, like he was like so mad at this actress. And apparently, I'll be honest with you, I don't know Betty. Okay. What's her whole name? You know, I write down
Isn't it
everybody's name.
Betsy? Is it Betsy?
Oh shoot, sorry. It's Betsy Palmer. Yeah. I don't know Betsy Palmer. I don't know what she's done. Unfortunately, I'm sure she's done a lot of things in her time, right? But he was so upset about this and her fans were upset. He leaked her fake address. Like why would you do that?
Well, he thought it was her real address when
Right.
he leaked it.
That's what I'm saying. So why would you do that? Like
So he doxed her
he
before
did.
pre-internet, and that is absolutely gross. And I'm glad that him and Siskel and Ebert broke up because that's heinous behavior. We don't like that.
Right?
Um, so Betsy,
Gene Siskel, that's his name. I'm like, why,
was that the
sir?
meaner one? Remember? Because we always used to get those
Yeah,
those Siskel and Ebert give it two thumbs up like in the
right.
90s when we were growing up. So let's see what else Betsy has. She was actually very beautiful. Um, let's see. Oh my gosh, her list of credits is not extensive. There's a lot of movies. So she started acting, it looks like she started appearing in movies in 1955.
Okay.
1980 Friday the 13th, of course. There's not really many movies of names with names that I remember. She did make an appearance in Friday the 13th Part 2, according to her filmography, which I don't recall, so I'll have to
It's
revisit that.
probably just her head.
Oh, that actually sounds familiar. Or maybe I'm making it up. I don't know.
There's a part
Um,
where we just see her head somewhere because, he keeps her head.
Sure. So she was in a movie in 2006 called Betsy Palmer Scream Queen Legend. I love that.
Okay.
She was in the 2007 movie Bell Witch.
Oh, okay.
And then in 2009, which is her last credit, she was in a documentary called His Name Was Jason,
Oh, yes,
30
yes, yes,
Years of Friday
yes.
the 13th. She did also appear on TV. Oh my gosh. Um, looks like some game shows. The Love Boat Murder, she wrote.
Okay. All
Charles
right.
in Charge. Okay.
Hey.
Columbo. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
I've seen those.
she got some good credits. And then also she appeared on Broadway.
Okay.
And I don't recognize the name of any of these shows. Certainly not Phantom of the Opera. So she has some credits. She's good. She did a good
Okay.
job.
She
Kevin
did.
Bacon, we know, of course. We're like, what did Kevin Bacon go on to do? What happened to
Right.
that guy? Footloose, like
Right. What was that show that he was in? I really like that show. I
he
can't
was in
remember it.
so there was one movie that I can't remember the title of, but I remember watching it really late at night when I was little. Like I went and snuck into like my mom's bed and I was watching this horrible movie that was on at like 3 a.m. where he was almost like a scout leader of some kind and he broke his leg and he was really mean to them and he was screaming and screaming about his broken leg.
Oh my
And I was
gosh.
just like, I don't know, probably like 10, like
Yeah, I
just
don't
like
know that one.
traumatized. I had I want to say something to do like white water. I don't know. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, please
Right,
feel free.
right.
But yeah, Kevin Bacon obviously is a big star.
Yeah,
And a lot of making a reference, I guess, to maybe Maxine. A lot of actors got their start in horror movies. And
very
that's a
true.
big theme in Maxine, which by the way, fantastic movie. Really, really enjoyed Maxine. Highly recommend. Um, so while we're talking about this, I know we talked a bit about Friday the 13th. We are, I'll tell you a secret, we are pre-recording this episode, right? For you for Friday the 13th. Beetlejuice has just come out. Would love to know your guys' thoughts and opinions on that. I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to see it next week. So by the time you see this, I will have seen it already. Um, Love to talk about it. Love to know. No spoilers ever. We don't spoil things. We let things go for months and months. But if you like it, if you don't like it, um, very curious, very hard to do sequels well ever, but especially this long
I mean,
after, like, whew,
you had Hocus Pocus too. It wasn't great, but I mean, they did that way after too. There's a lot of movies that come out way after that they try to bring it back. I will just say that everybody looks phenomenal in that
they
movie though. Like I've seen
do.
the cast. I don't plan on seeing that movie. But
At all?
probably not.
Really?
Um,
Okay.
I'll be honest with
Yeah,
you.
yeah. That's why we're here.
I have not seen the full first one. So
I
I've
almost just spit
seen
out my drink. You know it's on Max for
I've seen
free.
parts. Yes, I did see that. I noticed. So I mean I'm somebody I'm horrible at watching things. I will read like spoiler reports on movies and then decide if I want to see them or not. Because I want to know
Sure.
what happens. I will watch a movie backwards. I read books backwards. I'm, I'm somebody that will skip through a show just to see. I listen. If anybody has ever seen Sons of Anarchy, I jumped in
Oh.
at the end of the series. I think I watched the last three seasons or something.
Oh, that hurts me.
So yeah, I'm one of those
Opie.
people.
I'm so sorry, Opie. Okay.
No.
I know it's
I
terrible.
know. I'm one of those people though, you know what I'm saying? So I'm
Listen,
sorry.
no, if that works for you and that's what makes you happy, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I'll say the thing is, I know a lot of people that were upset about Hocus Pocus too. Um, when I go into a movie like this, typically any sequel, I don't generally believe in sequels. I know I've said that many times. I mean, I know they exist, obviously. I don't like to see them. Hocus Pocus 2 is one I had to see. This is one I have to see. I was big fans of the original. I go in with no expectations, none. I go in assuming they probably messed it up. That way it's easier to like you don't get your heart broken. You know what I mean? When you have no expectations, you don't
That's
get your
true.
heart broken.
Yeah. I
So
only feel
that's
that way about like remakes. That's how I go into remakes,
well,
you know.
I can't, we know that I can't, and that's a conversation for our next episode when we talk about remakes. Trust that it's going to come up. Um, it's going to come up. There's no way it's not going to come up. I Sometimes some things are so good you just need to leave them alone. You know what I mean? That's all I'm
Yes,
gonna say about that. Um, there are some movies like why don't we remake movies that were bad?
because they were bad.
But I'm saying maybe you could make them better if you worked on them. Maybe they could be good with better writing, better casting, better things. Or maybe they would just be more fodder for Mystery Science Theater 3000, which we also
Probably.
enjoy, or Riff
Yes.
Tracks, or the Horror Ghouls. Except we're never watching Mac and Me ever. I'm just putting that out. Never doing it. It's not going to happen. So,
I will say
you know.
that there are a lot of series that get the sequels, prequels, and all that stuff wrong. I will say there's one franchise that I actually really respect the way they've done all of their sequels and prequels. That is the Alien franchise. I have to be completely honest. I do want to see Alien Requiem. I thought I was going to go see it, and then the introvert in me said I don't feel like going, so I didn't. But you know,
Yeah.
um I feel like there's not been, I've seen almost all, I've read probably all of these movies, especially like I started out watching like Alien versus Predator and then had to like backtrack and watch the
Right.
old ones. And I will say that like going through Prometheus and everything after, like I enjoy those movies, and I think that they have a formula that they get right. They don't hang on the old tropes. They
Right.
don't, they don't go so far back or so far forward that it seems jarring or anything. Even when you had a crossover with Predator, they did it well.
Yeah.
I feel like it's similar to having a Freddy versus Jason. That was also, it again, that's hokey, but it works. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? It's not Michael Myers because
Well,
fun
you have to
fun.
know, you know what I mean? Is like you
Yeah,
have to know your content and you have to know your crowd. When you give anyone Freddy Krueger anything, we know that there's going to be some cheese to it. That's
of
part of the
course.
appeal. Like going back to the first Nightmare on Elm Street, where we literally can see the strings are supporting his arms that are all spread out when he's like in the alley, like Gina, blah blah, whatever.
True, but the first one isn't a comedy. He doesn't turn into a comedy until later. So they weren't trying to be hokey, but they were hokey.
Well,
Later
but I'm
on, they
saying
purposely made the choice. Robert Englund made the choice to be hokey later on.
and thank God for that. But it's like maybe you don't set out that way, but once you see that's what it's turned into, you lean into it.
Yes.
Um, so I appreciate when people do that and they kind of realize like maybe we set out to make this, but it kind of turned into this. We're gonna go with it. Um,
Yes. And also, like when I'm
yeah.
talking about the pairings, you have to pair people right because Jason versus Freddy works. Michael Myers versus Freddy doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
Michael Myers versus Jason might work,
Yes.
but you have to put like Laurie like behind Jason so that Mike gets to Jason first because Mike's not going to see Jason in the
No,
way
he doesn't
if
matter.
his sister isn't around.
He would like push him out the way. He would be like, he'd just
Yeah.
walk down the street and like shove him into a dumpster.
And then Jason would teleport and like try to stab him with a machete.
You
So
know what I would like? I would like Billy from Saw and Chucky, maybe.
well, Chucky would decimate Billy because Billy just rides a tricycle.
I know, I think that's
So
amazing. I think it would be funny to see as a oh my gosh, like a satire. I think it would be funny.
yes.
Something like that.
Oh my God, I said celebrity deathmatch earlier, but I could see it in that cartoon like claymation form.
Yeah.
That would be funny.
Yeah, like even
I
I sent a clip. I actually posted on the page the other day, and if you guys aren't following the Instagram, you're missing some golden horror posts that we're
the
putting out.
Hargles.
Follow us at the Horror Ghouls, just like she said. There was this thing where Billy was at an office, and it was basically like if Billy the puppet from Saw was your coworker and always like setting up traps and things, but they were all office related traps. That's what I mean. Like that if they actually said
Yes.
it in the real world, because the cartoon I think would be funny as well. But if
Yeah.
they said it in the real world, or even if it was just something silly like Freddy is trying to like do his stuff, adding another element now, and then like
Yeah.
Billy rides up squeaking on his tricycle, and Freddy's like, "What?" Like those are things I like to see. I know you said you don't like comedy stuff. I
I
love
mean,
comedy stuff.
there's certain things that have to, fit the criteria. I will
Yeah,
take some comedy. I don't search out like ha 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 ha
yeah.
comedy, but like some ironic comedy, some dark humor, you know, stuff like that. I laugh at inappropriate things, I definitely laughed when Brenda went thrown through the window in this movie. So, I
We
laughed
do
because I
have
was like, that's what you get, bitch. But I mean,
we have
so
that in common to a sense, but I think yours even takes it a step further. Like when you go post things on your Instagram, it's always like people falling and like what it's so fun. Falling down the stairs, falling off stuff,
people
things
getting hurt.
breaking. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. Listen, I promise you we're going to end this because this has been very long commentary at the end, but it's been fun. I posted something where there was, and I know it bothers people because it's an animal, but there was like a horse or a cow or something getting ready to fall out of a trailer. And when it fell out, the way they made it, they like turned it into like a steak. And I was like, this is so wrong, but I laughed so hard at the transition because like when I first watched it, I was like, oh my God, please. Like I really didn't want the cow to get hurt. But when they
Yeah.
did it, it just turned into a steak. And I was like, oh my
Sometimes the
gosh.
transitions, it is when they're unexpected.
Yes, and
It's like
that's
I
what makes
wasn't
it
expecting, oh my gosh, yeah. But
no.
that's the thing that makes me laugh. I think random things always will get me. Like this isn't a horror related thing specifically, but you guys know how we get like bots obviously on Instagram who they message you, they pretend to be celebrities, stuff like that.
Yes.
The other morning I woke up and I had a message request on my personal page from Barry Gibb from the Bee Gees. And I immediately started laughing very hard.
Oh
And
my
it's,
gosh.
but it, what made me laugh so much harder is when it was like, hello, sweet face. I know this must be a dream for you. And I was just hysterically laughing about like that's very bold of you to assume that even if you were really the person, because I don't follow anything. Like I like Bee Gees as much as the next guy, right? I don't follow their page. I'm not like, oh my God, I love Barry Gill. Like I'm not commenting that anywhere. Um, so just the whole thing, just
You know.
I love random humor
And
and stuff.
funny enough for me, my favorite musical artist is named Boney James. He's a saxophonist. And I like comment on his page all the time. And a bot got into my Instagram DMs. It was like, "Hi, darling. I'm Boney James's assistant. We love your work. We'd love to work with you." Now, mind you, this was on my business page. And so I'm like, okay, whatever. But I'm like, I know you're not his assistant.
Right, right, right.
Don't you try to play me.
Stay
Okay.
vigilant, friends.
Yeah, and then
Stay vigilant.
I like type back something crazy that I can't say on YouTube and and then was like block. So because I'm like it's a bot, it doesn't matter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've gotten those have you ever entertained a bot at
No,
all?
not outside of just leaving some kind of nasty, ridiculous message and then block.
There was just one time I did. No, I don't have the energy for stuff like that. Like I don't care to put that's how I use my time and energy. But one time I had a Billy Joel bot and it was like, first of all, as a Long Islander, like Billy Joel is all of our uncles essentially. We hold him very dear. We love him, most of us. And if you don't love him, you absolutely hate him. And I don't know why. Maybe he drunkenly drove into your mailbox in the late 90s. I don't know what happened. So also he doesn't drink anymore. So I'm just putting that out there. But the bot was like, hello, how long have you been a fan of mine? And I was like, I got a little time. And I was like, oh my God, Billy Joel, it's really you. Like I just, and then every time I responded to him, I always called him Billy Joel. I never said, I was like, oh, that's crazy, Billy Joel. And then they start trying to get your information, like, how many people are in your family? Like, do you have a sister? And I made up a story about how my whole family perished in a horrible accident naturally.
Of course.
Because that's what you do, and that doesn't make me a sociopath at all. So
I mean, I would have
there.
said Paris in a fire or something myself, so
Yeah, and I said, well, what I actually said, I didn't specify. I said, I don't like to talk about it since the incident. So,
that's perfect. That's
not
perfect.
since the incident. But yeah, so that took a left on us a little bit. But we hope you enjoyed this
Yes.
review of Friday the 13th. We always, we love to know your thoughts and feelings. And
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, so if you have any more chilling theories, thoughts, other slashers you'd want us to cover, don't forget to let us know on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram at The Horror Ghouls. And don't forget to follow and subscribe for more terrifying analyses and spine-tingling discussions. And so until next time, stay spooky, keep the darkness close, and be sure to steer clear of strange campgrounds with a tragic past.
Good advice. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.